The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. First up, charges against Texas congressional candidate Isaiah Martin have been dropped. We brought you the report Friday. Martin was arrested in Austin, jailed for more than 24 hours after speaking out during a redistricting hearing. During testimony, he accused Republicans of rigging the redistricting process to appeal to President Trump. Take a look.
Remember you kindly for what you have done. They will not. As a matter of fact, history might not remember you at all because of what you have done. You need to have shame. This will not remember you for what you have done. It is a shame. It is horrific for what you have done.
Now, President Trump and the DOJ previously indicated congressional districts should be redrawn 5 years ahead of schedule. The president has said he'd like to see as many as 5 more Republican seats from the state of Texas. Governor Abbott added the issue to the special session after speaking with the president. Joining us to talk about it now is Isaiah Martin. Free at last, huh?
Thank God Almighty.
There you go. What was it like, first of all, when you walked into that meeting to express your displeasure in the way the legislature was going with redistricting? Did you ever think you'd end up in that position?
No, I mean, it certainly wasn't on my bingo card of things that could have happened to me this year. But, you know, look, ultimately what I saw was a bunch of Republican legislators that were completely tuning out the people of our district, you know, people that were driving hours to go forward and tell these guys just how much they didn't want to see it. And I couldn't stand for it. And so when I saw that and I saw these Republicans and the way they were acting, I knew I had to speak truth to power in that moment. And so whatever happened is what happened.
And when you made that move and realized now you're being taken into custody, you will be charged. Eventually the charges were dropped, but that you would be charged. What was going through your mind then? Well,
first, to be honest with you, I didn't know that I was actually going to get charged at all. When I got pushed out of the room, you know, they told me to follow them outside of the Capitol. They took me up to the first level per se. And then, you know, an officer, I guess, was looking at my ankle because my ankle was busted. My finger was busted as well. And they said, just wait right here. The officer that tackled me basically goes to the back of the room and he goes and he gets a phone call. And I'm wondering, like, who is he talking to on the phone? And so then he runs up to me and says, oh, well, now you're going to be charged with, you know, trespassing, which I thought was odd because we were in the state capitol, the People's House, at a hearing that I was scheduled to speak at. Trespassing, resisting arrest, and all of these things. I said, well, how is that remotely possible? Then he says, well, basically tell it to the judge. And so next thing I know, they put me in a car and sent me to the jail, and that's where things went.
Being there at that hearing and hearing what you did and feeling what you felt, did you not feel like anyone else would stand up like you would in that moment to say something, to do something?
No, I didn't. And personally, what I saw was just, like I said, so many Republicans that were sitting there doing nothing. They were just laughing at people. They were on their phones. They were not paying attention. And I just thought it was ridiculous. And
do you think Democrats could have done more or could be doing more as well?
Well, look, a lot of Democrats, I mean, look, the folks that were on the committee were definitely opposed to what's going on and what's happening. But as somebody that was in the audience and was seeing what was happening and the effect that it had on people, I knew that I personally could not sit back while this was going on. So I knew I had to do something.
And obviously, this has hit social media. You were trending Friday. For those who say this was a publicity stunt for you to get attention to run for Congress, your thoughts about that?
You know, to be honest with you.
And you've heard that, right?
I mean, look, people are going to say whatever they're going to say. But ultimately, what I do know now is that millions of people are talking about the fact that Republicans are trying to destroy the district that we have, that Congresswoman Jackson Lee fought so hard to keep compact. What we see are now people talking about the Republican policies that have straight up destroyed the economy and everything else we've got. So, look, ultimately what happened is that the people of this district and the people of the state are rising up against this foolishness, and I'm proud to be able to go forward.
Do you think enough people realize exactly what's going on when they talk about redrawing congressional districts and how it would change the dynamics in the areas that they vote and how those who have their interests will be either ignored or not?
Well, we always have to do a lot more. And that's why I've been so focused on the idea of transparency. And what we do is a nightly TikTok town hall in which we get about 15,000 people a night that join in to hear us talk about the issues of the day. That's why we've got a campaign everywhere and anywhere, whether that's in barbershops, whether that's through, at Democratic clubs, whether that's at regular bars or everything else. We have to be willing to go forward and talk to everybody and anybody about the threats to our economy, the threats to our health care, and what can potentially happen when Republicans can gerrymander more people out of their seats.
And how do you turn those views, those thousands of views you're talking about, into action, people getting out of their houses, young people particularly,
Absolutely.
Getting out of their houses and voting? How do you motivate them to do that?
Absolutely. Well, first off, we've seen an explosion of volunteer signups just with our campaign. We have over 1,000 people signed up to volunteer to go out and support our campaign for Congress. I mean, many of these people, when you do research, have never volunteered for any campaign before in their lives. They've never really been involved in the process, but we're getting them engaged. So I think it starts by person to person. Yes, it's finding ways to get their attention, but then also when you have their attention, turning that into action. So yes, that means going out and block walking. Yes, that means talking to neighbors. Yes, that also means getting people to talk to their own friends and family about what's going on, because we understand and know that the most effective way to be able to communicate politically is through people communicating through their own networks. And that's something we've been pushing.
And you've had your connections with the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. How do you get her older constituents to vote for you, to support you despite your age being 27 years old, to realize, hey, I can do this job too? How do you bring them into the fold?
Absolutely. Well, first off, I think it's about having substance. I think that campaigns should be about substance and the real issues. My agenda has always been to make America more affordable. M-A-M-A, like your mama, is our agenda. And
like
so
that.
Ultimately,
Your mama.
right. And so look, we're talking about getting more dollars for Social Security for people, guaranteeing health care in America, doing what we can to build more housing to lower the cost of rent, making sure that we can have universal child care in America. Those are things that older people, younger people, middle-aged people all across the spectrum can agree with, because ultimately they know that the status quo in America is not working. Our agenda, yes, is to stand up to Donald Trump and to beat Donald Trump and his shenanigans, but it's talking about what we do afterwards, because it's not okay to just go back to the same old way of the way things used to be. And we're pioneering a way forward that's a lot more focused on people's day-to-day concerns.
All right, Isiah Martin, thank you for dropping by The Factor Uncensored. We appreciate your time. Like you said, you're free now. All right.